think you were talking about your school, and Dave, you correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was you was talking about the 7th and 9th graders in your school, and the amount of that they actually have the opposite problem. Remember we talked about Dr. Chavez last week saying that 80% of 9th grade material seems to be almost completely new to the students. This is from Dr. Jesus Chavez study of Harlingen School District, right? Several years ago. This would be back maybe 8, 9, 10 years ago now. It's a while ago. We talked about it last week, right? Remember that? And then you made a comment on the blog. Was it you saying that the 7th to 9th graders in your school, or was it Ben? Was it Ben? Oh, okay. Did you make a comment? I'm sorry. I'm sorry, David. It's okay. But okay, Ben, was you? David. Okay. So it was something you said that I was thinking about too, and that's why I got mixed up. But you made a comment about actually the other problem, right? Which is like the repetition of material over and over again boring the students, right? Okay, that's actually a really good point because it kind of ties into what these ladies are going to be talking about. So I won't go into detail on it because they'll be saying, hey, don't talk about that. That's in our presentation. So I won't do that. But I will use the point as a bit of a lead-in because when we talk about, we have to be careful what we mean. And I think I was partly at fault last week on this one. Because when I talked about new material in the Dr. Chavez study, right, I didn't really specify what I mean by new material. When we talk about new material in educational terms, it's usually, the way we discuss it, it's a little bit different, okay, than what you would mean by, say, new material if you're picking up a magazine. Let's say, for example, if you pick up Time Magazine, a weekly magazine that comes out, and they have sort of an international edition. Maybe a better example might be to use the International Herald Tribune, a newspaper. Because a lot of you guys, maybe not so many read Time, because that's more of an American publication. But International Herald Tribune, how many of you have seen or read that at one time or another? The International Herald Tribune? Show of hands, nobody? Okay. It's an international newspaper, yeah, one or two people. It's an international newspaper that's put out, okay? And it's got news articles in it and analysis. Now, if you pick that up and you read today's edition, right, and then you tomorrow pick it up and you're reading the next one, you would say that's all new material. Does that make sense? In other words, the stories are all new. There may be some stories that are a lead off to what was said before, but basically it would be pretty much all different, right? Does that make sense? But when you say in education, we would talk this. If you are going over it, like if you think of the story example, let's say they're following something to do with the red shirts problems in Thailand that are going on, and there's going to be some demonstrations coming up, and now we know that the PAD, the People's Alliance for Democracy, which sometimes called the yellow shirts, are planning their own demonstration, right? So if you talk about those demonstrations, but then you connect back in time to all the things that have gone on, you know, the whole issue of the red shirts, the yellow shirts, goes back to, you know, the Thompson administration, and in some cases maybe even before. If you look at farming movements that have led to, and in some cases collective farming movements, yes, that have led to the red shirts. All of those connections can go across. So that material isn't exactly new. Does that make sense? Do you understand what I'm saying? It's not exactly new. So in math, let me try the example I used on the blog, and I think this is what I said in the blog, maybe correct me if I'm wrong. I said, like, in math, for example, if you're doing fractions, right? You're doing fractions, you know, 1/4, 1/2, so on, right? With the kids. And then you switch to decimals, right? That isn't really new material. Here's why. All you're really doing is showing that 1/4, right, is 1 part out of 4, and then if you make the box into little pieces of 100 little pieces in the box, yeah, then you'll have 25 pieces in each of the 4 boxes, equals 100, right? So 1/4 is equal to 0.25. Now, obviously, that was a very quick explanation. With kids, you're going to go over that. You're going to draw it. You might put it on the blackboard. You might get some blocks and show it. But the point is, the material is not really new in the way that Dr. Chavez is talking about it. If you go now to algebra, and you say, okay, now we're going to talk about x's and y's and variables and equations, that's new. Does that make sense? So when you talk about new in educational terms, there's parallels to the world of news or the world of business, but sometimes we speak a little bit on a little bit different terms. Does that make sense? Okay? So, I want to be clear on that, because when I talked about the Chavez study last week, okay, and when these ladies start talking about spiral curriculum, part of what they're going to be discussing is the different ways, and I'm not sure exactly what aspects they'll be discussing, okay, but part of it involves, whether they'll cover this part or not, that's okay, but part of it involves going over some of the same material each year, and at different levels of complexity, and they'll talk about that, okay? And that's what the spiral is, and then there's different kinds of spirals, right? So they're going to be talking about that, but I just want to make that connection, because the whole thing we did last week, keep that Chavez study in mind, sort of in the back of your mind a little bit, as they go through, as Preet and Neet go through what they're going to do. Isn't that a lovely combination? Don't you like that? Preet and Neet. It's kind of like, it could be a group, you know? I mean, to me it's better than a golf mic, you know? Golf mic, it doesn't, you know, I mean, they're alright. I should be jumping up and down, because they're from ours, you know, they're two of ours, you know? Yay, right? But, no, they're great guys. But they don't have the rhyme, you know? Look at that. Neet and Preet. Preet and Neet, you know? I mean, like, I can see that on a CD, you know? I mean, I think that's hard. You know, I think it's really wonderful.